Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic impactful lessons that they've learned throughout the course of their business. Share them with us so that we can all learn together. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way that established businesses are creating a reliable acquisition channel of conversations with their ideal prospects. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach, endless social media posting, or any of the old, ineffective traditional marketing methods that everybody hates. So to find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. The link to that will be in the show notes below. But I am excited to have on today's show Garret Grajek. He's the owner of YouAttest, where they provide cloud-based identity governance for enterprises with regulated data such as healthcare, finance, insurance, government, defense, and retail. So, Garret, welcome to the show today. And I want to start off by asking you a question that I always love to start with, which is this. If you were somehow able to go back in time to when you started your business, but knowing what you know now, what would you do differently in the first 12 months?
That's a great question, and I'm sure every founder thinks that way. Okay, I would say, and it's going to sound obvious to the people who come from these companies from a business side, but I'm a techie. I got 15 patents. I come from the tech side. Is understand who is going to be important in your enterprise going forward, business wise, and start with those contacts from day one. And I mean, be it people in, certain groups like I'm in the regulated industry, the cyber industries of relevance is ISACA, ISSA, the CSA organization. Get to know those contacts and identify the people in there who are going to help you promote your not only your first release, but your product and where you're at and your company, and help you in the journey that's going to be last you for the rest of the organization. I think those human contacts from day one are essential.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you. As you've been reaching out to contacts, whether they've been existing contacts or new contacts, one of the things that I hear from a lot of people is that they try different methods, they end up trying, they end up falling into being spammy or things that they're just learning how to create relationships. So, what are some of the things that you've done to avoid being spammy in the way that you reach out and connect and build relationships and leads for your business?
Yeah, and I would say that probably sometimes we were spammy. That did happen. So, and you're saying, we all know that's not effective and somewhat annoying. The way I've done it is through constant communication in any means possible. Some through email, but LinkedIn and phone, and try to be present at shows and other mechanisms for relevant people in the industry. Now, personally have created a weekly email to key partners. Some list, I think it's up to 300 now, that I just communicate weekly what I'm working on, what we care about, blogs, etc. And I created about 4 years ago my own podcast series to help identify topics and people that are relevant in the topics in the world of governance, risk, and compliance. And that has helped me immensely in not only messaging the problems, but understanding the important viewpoints in the industry and having hear them say it, and then that I can, glom onto their way and their style and their way of communicating to the industry.
Yeah. And you said something at the beginning of that, which I think is true, is you probably were spammy at some points. And I think
Yeah,
we all are,
right.
at some points. And what's really interesting is even when we're communicating in really genuine ways, some people will perceive it as spammy no matter what. So, but it's trying to find that balance with what you do. And so that's really cool. Well, as you've grown the business, what's one of the key factors that you've found that's helped you to get to where you are now?
Um, I wish I could put one. I think persistency and the openness to other founders and other people in the industries ideas of what's worked. Now, I did this company, 25, 30 years into my career and have seen how other people have promoted companies and all that. So that's a huge help. I mean, having the experience and been there, done that, see what works, see what doesn't. But as we know, starting the business now in 2026 and running an emerging technology company is a lot different than it was 20 years ago. You know, I mean, there's a lot more opportunity to self message, be it podcast, be it LinkedIn, be it whatever. I think there's a much more YouTube, Spotify. There's much more opportunities to self promote, and traditional channels are still good and still relevant, but I think it's understanding what's worked in the past, trying to see if it works in the past, and being open to new technologies and new mechanisms.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And there is a lot of things changing. What's been the biggest change, just say over the last 2 years that's affected your industry?
Well, I mean, I have multiple patents in AI and have AI in the YouAttest product that we patented. So AI is great and it's helping this product work. And the industry needs our product to secure and govern AI. But also, I mean, there's been an explosion of tools around marketing in AI. And I can honestly say I'm exploring. I talk to other founders. There's a call right after this. He loves a certain tool, and we're trying to understand which tools actually add value. And
Mm,
I think that's a lot of our job now today is one being open to new technology, but not be just chasing that golden ring that, oh, this is going to be the perfect tool.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I think that is the right approach for sure, being able to assess each one because there is, as you said, an explosion
It
of
is
all these
explosion.
things.
Yeah.
And most of them I wouldn't say are very good, but there are some really good ones out there.
Yeah, and it seems because this is a good demo yesterday. Someone showed me something, and I was like, okay, I'm not seeing anything completely novel in the tool. Is more as a collection of functionalities from other tools in the Cintin platform. So that's good. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
in the end, it is what we're feeding these tools and what we understand what they're going to be messaging and how they're going to be messaging it and who they're going to be messaging it to. So it's really, goes back to, marketing and messaging 101, but with just, some automation in it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, one of the things I always love to talk about, Garrett, on this show as well is the challenges that we have in business because they're always there as a business owner. And I like to kind of just chat around them because that way we can all learn from each other's challenges and stuff. So, having said that, what's the number one biggest challenge that you've faced in your business so far? And what's the lesson that you've learned from that?
I think staying relevant is really important for emerging companies because it's not uncommon to get the spotlight as hey, I have a new idea, and we're in the cyber industry really in tune with with saying even more so than maybe even healthy to say, oh, this new guy's got an idea. Okay, great. That gets you a spotlight pretty quick in a good way. Now, what's relevant is after you've been there for a couple of years, is to re-engage with the marketplace, with your people, and saying, acknowledged. By the way, done that. There is a new challenge out there. What we've been doing is extremely relevant, and here is our solution for this new things. So staying relevant and staying pertinent to changing conditions is a challenge and something that I think anyone in my position wakes up every day and realizes they have to do.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's is there anything that you do to stay relevant, to keep on top of stuff? Because obviously with your in I mean every industry changes. Within your industry, I'm assuming it's changing very rapidly. So are there any tips for people to help just stay relevant?
And this interview is great because it's that initial question you had, the contacts you make at the beginning are the ones that are going to keep you going throughout because they're part of the industry, you're part of the industry, that constant dialogue with those people. And everyone has different ways to keep up and keep pertinent. So I'm not going to tell them. I mean, my way is I throw them on as guests in my podcast and just it gives me an excuse to say hello and find out what they're really working on and to validate the ideas that I'm working on. So that's what I do is keep that list of who you is relevant in your industry, relevant to you, keep them close and find a way to make sure you're dialoguing with them in a mutually beneficial way. You
Yeah.
know, people like to get their name out, so great. I throw them on a podcast or have them do a guest blog or have them appear with me somewhere, and that's great. But I think
Yeah.
that's really it. I mean, humans are our best resource for what's staying new because people will publish their ideas once they're baked, but that's not where you have to be in emerging technology. You have to be working on stuff before it's being published.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, talking about change and being relevant and all those things, over the next 2 to 3 years, Garrett, what are your goals? What would you like to achieve in the business?
What we want to be a main player in we are already a dominant player for people who want to review their accesses for human entities. That's been a great space. We did a great job in that and that works in. Now I've been working on a lot and talking to my contacts and redesigning how do we attest to the privileges and activities of the non-human identities, which are in many enterprises outnumbering the human entities 10 to 1. How do we identify the ones that are trusted? And how do we identify the ones that are rogue and should be blocked? And the next question is, where do we block them? Because
Mm,
authentication was pretty straightforward. Yes, we'll authenticate the user at this, it's called a policy enforcement point, and that could be at your website or at your device, and then we'll establish your identity. Where is the best place to lock out and block a non-human identity in the network? And what is the information that needs to be passed and needs to be reviewed by us, and we're you attest being the policy decision point. What should we be reviewing and where should we pass that information to? That's really the big challenge I see in the next 12, 24 months.
yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, what's for anyone that's listening, they're like, okay, Garrett, what's the number one way that you can help me? What is that? What are you, why should they reach out to you?
I would say if you're two ways. If you're struggling at all with how you're going to meet identity compliance, that's what I've built my life on the last 5, 6 years. So I can help you there. Second of all, if you're struggling with how do I get started and what do I get started and what do I need to get started in an enterprise, I got relevant information there. And
Yeah,
it's not, and I'm a positive person. I believe in the journey. I believe in people, and I believe that we should do this. So I'm not that guy that's going to be saying you shouldn't do this. That's not, I mean, we're only alive for so long, so do it, you know? But just be mentally prepared and see if you have the ducks in a row right now to get started, or maybe it's 6 months or a year from now.
yeah. Amazing, amazing. Well, for people that are interested in having a chat with you and learning a little bit more about how you can help them, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
You mentioned it a couple times in the thing. Just ping me on LinkedIn. you know,
Mm,
and you're invited to say, heard you on a podcast, love to talk, whatever, whatever it works. And that works, or you can, hit me at CEO@youattest.com. Either way.
Amazing, amazing. Well, definitely recommend anyone that's listening. They think, man, I think Garret can really help me. Definitely reach out to him on those different channels and just have a chat with him and see where he can help you in your business. But Garret, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you taking out the time to be on the show. And I know we rescheduled earlier from this week, but I'm glad we were able to get it rescheduled with you. So thank you so much for that. And as a reminder to everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way that established businesses are creating a reliable acquisition channel of conversations with their ideal prospects that doesn't rely on any of the old, ineffective traditional marketing methods that everybody hates. So to find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that is in the show notes below. But until the next episode, stay inspired.